I sat across from Amanda at our favorite coffee shop, watching how the afternoon sunlight caught in her auburn hair. 18 months after discovering my wife Jessica in our bed with my friend Richard, I finally felt whole again. The crushing weight of betrayal had lifted, replaced by genuine happiness with Amanda. We laughed over shared jokes that had become our language. Then I saw it. A familiar blue sedan, parked across the street. My stomach twisted into a knot of dread. Somehow I knew our peace was about to shatter. Before I tell you about the nightmare that began that day, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe so you don't miss my authentic life stories. My story with Jessica began in college. We met during sophomore year in a psychology elective I took to fill credits. She sat 2 rows ahead, always asking thoughtful questions that impressed our professor. One group project later, we were inseparable. After graduation, we dated for 2 more years before I proposed on a weekend trip to Cape Cod. The wedding was small but perfect, just close friends and family celebrating our love on a warm June afternoon. For 5 years, our marriage seemed solid. I worked as a software engineer for a growing tech company in Boston, while Jessica excelled as a marketing manager at a startup. We had a comfortable apartment in Cambridge, took vacations twice a year, and talked about buying a house in the suburbs once we were ready for children. From the outside, we were that couple friends envied for having everything figured out. The first signs something was wrong appeared gradually. Jessica started working later, coming home exhausted with little interest in our conversations. Our weekend brunches turned into her scrolling through her phone while I tried to maintain a dying conversation. When I asked if everything was okay, she would snap that she was just tired from work. I believed her because I wanted to. The thought that my wife might be unhappy in our marriage was too painful to consider. Then came our 5th anniversary. I planned to surprise Jessica with a special evening at home. I left work early, stopping at her favorite florist for a bouquet of lilies and the wine shop for an expensive bottle of Cabernet. At the grocery store, I gathered ingredients for her favorite pasta dish. I imagined her face lighting up when she walked through the door, how we might reconnect over dinner and remember why we fell in love. I heard the sounds as soon as I unlocked our front door. At first, my mind refused to process what I was hearing. Perhaps Jessica was watching a movie or had returned home early and was on a work call. But as I moved through our apartment, the bouquet still clutched in my hand, I knew. The bedroom door was partially open. I saw her first, then recognized Richard, my coworker of 3 years, my friend who had been to our home for dinner countless times. The flowers hit the floor. Jessica screamed. Richard scrambled for his clothes. I stood frozen, unable to process the scene in front of me. My wife and my friend. In our bed. On the day that was supposed to celebrate our love. The room spun around me. As Jessica pulled the sheet up to cover herself, her face, a mixture of shock and guilt. "Lester, I can explain," she stammered. But what explanation could possibly make this okay? I turned and walked out, ignoring her calls as she hastily wrapped herself in our bedsheets to follow me. In the kitchen, I mechanically unpacked the groceries, placing each item carefully on the counter, while Jessica tearfully tried to explain that it just happened and wasn't serious. When Richard emerged fully dressed from our bedroom, shame written across his face, something in me snapped. "How long?" I asked, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. Jessica looked at Richard, then back at me. 8 months, she finally admitted. 8 months. While I planned our future, researched neighborhoods with good schools, and saved for our dream home, my wife had been betraying me with someone I trusted. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Why, I managed to ask. Jessica gave me the speech I would later learn is painfully common. She felt neglected. I worked too much. We had grown apart. Richard understood her in ways I never had. She didn't plan for it to happen. That night, I packed a bag and checked into a hotel. Within a week, I found a small 1-bedroom apartment and moved what little I wanted from our shared home. Jessica alternated between begging for another chance and blaming me for driving her to infidelity. I filed for divorce, immediately refusing marriage counseling or reconciliation. Some betrayals cut too deep for second chances. The following months revealed an even more painful truth. Several of our mutual friends had known about the affair. Jessica had confided in them, spinning a story about our failing marriage and my emotional unavailability. While I suffered in silence, embarrassed by my situation, she had been building a narrative that cast her as the victim of a cold, distant husband. The divorce proceedings dragged on for 3 months. Each interaction with Jessica and the lawyers, leaving me more drained than the last. The months following my divorce were the darkest of my life. I barely maintained my performance at work, requesting a transfer to a different project to avoid daily interactions with Richard, who had the audacity to try apologizing as if betraying my trust was something that could be fixed with a few remorseful words. I isolated myself, declining invitations from friends until they stopped coming. My one-bedroom apartment remained half-unpacked boxes stacked against walls as if I couldn't commit to this new, unwanted reality. Sleep became elusive, my mind replaying memories and searching for signs I had missed. Had there been clues, was I really as inattentive as Jessica claimed? The questions circled endlessly, preventing rest. After weeks of my brother's persistent encouragement, I reluctantly scheduled an appointment with a therapist. Dr. Sarah Kelly was straightforward and compassionate, creating a space where I could express the anger, hurt, and shame that had been consuming me. Week by week, she helped me understand that while marriages fail for many reasons, Jessica's choice to cheat rather than address our problems directly was her decision alone, not a reflection of my worth. Under Dr. Kelly's guidance, I joined a support group for people navigating divorce. Hearing others share similar experiences gradually diminished my sense of isolation. I was not the first person to be betrayed, and I would not be the last. This simple truth somehow made my burden easier to bear. I channeled my pain into physical activity, joining a gym and establishing a routine of morning runs along the Charles River. As my body grew stronger, my mind began to clear. I rediscovered old interests that had fallen away during my marriage, picking up my guitar again and joining a local climbing club. Each small step forward rebuilt my sense of self outside the identity of husband, betrayed spouse, divorcee. At work, I threw myself into the new project, finding satisfaction in solving complex problems and collaborating with colleagues who knew nothing of my personal life. My contributions earned me recognition and eventually a promotion that further separated me from my past with Richard. When necessary, communications with Jessica arose regarding final divorce matters. I managed them with detached civility, surprising myself with my emotional growth. 9 months after discovering Jessica's affair, I attended a weekend photography workshop on a whim. Photography had interested me in college, and rekindling old passions seemed part of my healing process. That's where I met Amanda Wilson. Amanda taught 4th grade at an elementary school in Somerville and pursued photography in her free time. She had warm brown eyes that crinkled when she laughed and a quiet confidence I found immediately attractive. During the workshop, we were paired for a composition, exercise, and conversation flowed effortlessly between us. For the first time in nearly a year, I felt present in the moment, rather than trapped in painful memories. After the workshop, I worked up the courage to ask if she would like to continue our conversation over coffee. To my delight, she agreed. That coffee led to visiting a photography exhibition the following weekend, which led to a walk through Boston Common, which led to dinner at a small Italian restaurant where we talked until the staff began stacking chairs on tables. Amanda was thoughtful, funny, and passionate about her students. She listened intently when I spoke and asked questions that showed genuine interest. I found myself sharing small pieces of my past, testing her reaction. When I finally told her about my marriage and its painful end, she didn't offer empty platitudes or uncomfortable pity. Instead, she shared her own story of heartbreak from a relationship that ended when her partner revealed he never wanted children, a non-negotiable for Amanda. There was a comforting symmetry in our experiences, different yet similar enough that we understood each other's caution. We moved forward slowly, both aware of past wounds. After 2 months of dating, we decided to make our relationship official, and I experienced a sense of rightness I had nearly forgotten possible. The trouble began 6 months into my relationship with Amanda. Jessica suddenly resurfaced in my life, first with casual text messages asking how I was doing. I responded politely but briefly, seeing no reason for hostility but also no benefit in rekindling any type of relationship. The messages increased in frequency, often arriving late at night or early morning. She suggested meeting for coffee to maintain our friendship. An idea I gently, but firmly declined. Through mutual connections, I learned that Jessica and Richard had broken up. According to gossip that inevitably reached me, Richard had repeated his pattern, beginning an affair with another coworker at their company. I felt no satisfaction at this news, only a distant sense of confirmation that the problem had never been me. Then Jessica began appearing in places she knew I frequented. She would be seated at the coffee shop near my office, or shopping at the grocery store in my neighborhood. Despite living across town, each encounter seemed coincidental, but the frequency defied probability. When she appeared outside my building one morning, as I left for work, the pretense of accidental meetings dissolved. "I miss you," she admitted, stepping into my path. "I made a terrible mistake, Lester. Richard was never who I thought he was." I looked at the woman I had once planned to grow old with, and felt nothing but a dull pity. "I've moved on, Jessica. You should too." Her expression hardened briefly before softening into practiced vulnerability. "Could we just talk? Over dinner, maybe. For closure." "We had our closure when we signed the divorce papers," I said, stepping around her. "Please respect that my life has moved forward." When Jessica discovered I was dating Amanda, her behavior escalated. She emailed my parents claiming she was trying to save our marriage, conveniently omitting that we were already divorced. She created fake social media accounts to follow both Amanda and me. Colleagues mentioned uncomfortable encounters with Jessica, where she made disparaging comments about Amanda, calling her a temporary rebound. Anonymous gifts began appearing at my apartment building, gifts I never brought inside. I installed a security camera and documented everything. But when I reported the situation to local police, they explained that without direct threats, their options were limited. They suggested a restraining order, but I hesitated still, hoping Jessica would accept reality and move on without legal intervention. Amanda handled the situation with remarkable patience, though I could see the strain it caused. We altered our routines, avoiding places Jessica might expect to find us. We were careful about posting on social media. What should have been the carefree honeymoon phase of our relationship was instead overshadowed by this unwelcome intrusion from my past. 6 months into our relationship, Amanda and I decided to celebrate at a cafe across town somewhere. Jessica would have no reason to expect us. The evening began perfectly. Amanda wore a green dress that complemented her eyes, and we secured a quiet corner table where we could talk without interruption. I had just reached across the table to take her hand when I saw Amanda's eyes widen, focusing on something behind me. Jessica stood beside our table, her appearance disheveled in a way I had never seen during our marriage. Her eyes darted between Amanda and me, unnaturally bright. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice slightly slurred. "Alone." "This isn't appropriate, Jessica," I said firmly. "Please leave us be." 2 minutes, she insisted. "After 5 years together, you owe me 2 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed to step outside, briefly assuring Amanda I would return quickly. On the sidewalk, Jessica immediately launched into accusations and recriminations. "You never even tried to save our marriage," she hissed. "You just threw away 5 years like it meant nothing to you. You ended our marriage when you chose to cheat," I replied calmly. "I'm happy now, Jessica. Please respect that and focus on your own life." Her face contorted with anger. "Happy? With her? She doesn't know you like I do. She doesn't love you like I do." When Amanda emerged from the cafe, concerned by the rising voices, Jessica turned her fury toward her. "This is your fault. He was working through things with me before you came along." Amanda stood her ground. "That's not true, and you know it. You're hurting yourself more than anyone else with this behavior." Jessica's response was a stream of insults so vicious that other pedestrians stopped to stare. I took Amanda's arm, guiding her away from the scene. "Let's go. This isn't productive for anyone." We walked quickly down the block, toward where we had parked. As we crossed the street, I noticed Jessica storming toward her car, a blue sedan parked opposite the cafe. Something about her movements sent alarm bells ringing through my mind. "Let's walk faster," I told Amanda, suddenly uneasy. We had just reached the sidewalk when I heard an engine roar to life, tires squealing against pavement. Looking over my shoulder, I saw Jessica's car accelerating directly toward us, jumping the curb onto the pedestrian walkway. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Amanda's hand and pulling her toward the nearest storefront. We lunged through an open doorway as Jessica's car crashed into the building's exterior, shattering the large front window of what turned out to be a bookstore. Glass exploded inward as screams erupted from customers and staff. Holding Amanda protectively, I watched in horror as Jessica emerged from her crumpled vehicle, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. Her eyes found mine through the broken window, vacant and unrecognizable. Before she could move toward us, two bystanders restrained her while someone else called police. Within minutes, sirens filled the air as first responders arrived at the chaotic scene. The aftermath of Jessica's attack unfolded in a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and court appearances. Amanda and I were fortunate to escape with only minor cuts from the flying glass. Jessica was arrested at the scene, clearly intoxicated, and continuing to make threats as officers led her away. The incident made local news, bringing unwanted attention and requiring explanations to shocked family members who still thought of Jessica as the charming woman from our wedding photos. In the days following the attack, I learned that Jessica had been struggling with untreated mental health issues exacerbated by alcohol abuse. The psychologist who evaluated her for the court identified a combination of depression, borderline personality traits, and alcohol dependency that created a perfect storm of emotional instability. This wasn't an excuse for her actions, but it helped me understand that the person who tried to harm us wasn't entirely the woman I had once loved. The legal system moved with surprising efficiency, given the public nature of the incident and multiple witnesses. Jessica was ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment as part of her sentence, along with a strict restraining order, preventing any contact with Amanda or me. I felt conflicted attending her sentencing hearing. Conflicted about seeing her handcuffed and despondent, yet certain that boundaries were necessary for everyone's safety and healing. The support we received during this period proved invaluable. Amanda's parents drove from Connecticut to stay with us for a week, bringing home cooked meals and practical help. My brother Thomas took time off work to accompany us to court appointments, providing both emotional support and a physical presence that made me feel more secure. Friends created a rotating schedule to ensure we weren't alone in the immediate aftermath, understanding that the incident had reawakened trauma for me and created new trauma for Amanda. Both of us returned to therapy, processing the shock and lingering anxiety from the attack. I struggled with guilt, feeling responsible for bringing this chaos into Amanda's life. She consistently reassured me that she didn't blame me for Jessica's actions, but the conversations led us to make a significant decision: we needed a fresh start somewhere new. My company had an office in Portland, Oregon, and agreed to transfer me there. Amanda researched teaching positions and secured interviews at several schools. 3 months after the incident, we packed our belongings into a moving truck and embarked on a cross-country road trip, turning the necessary relocation into an adventure that strengthened our bond. Portland offered the new beginning we sought. We found an apartment in a neighborhood filled with coffee shops and bookstores, close to the elementary school, where Amanda was hired to teach 3rd grade. I adapted quickly to my new team at work, appreciating the change of pace and culture from the East Coast office. Weekends were spent exploring hiking trails and waterfalls, discovering local farmers markets, and gradually building a community of new friends unconnected to our past. The physical distance from Boston provided psychological distance from the trauma we had experienced. With each passing month, we referenced the incident less frequently. Jessica became a chapter in my life rather than a continuing presence. When thoughts of the attack surfaced, they carried less emotional charge, more like remembering a film I had seen than something I had lived through. Amanda and I grew closer through the shared experience and subsequent healing. We learned to communicate more openly about fears and triggers, developing a relationship built on honesty and mutual support. I watched with admiration as she threw herself into teaching with creativity and dedication, earning the respect of students, parents, and colleagues alike. In quiet moments, I found myself marveling at how the worst betrayal of my life had ultimately led me to my truest partnership. On our one-year anniversary, I took Amanda to Cannon Beach at sunset. As waves crashed against the iconic Haystack Rock, I knelt in the sand and asked her to marry me. Her joyful acceptance felt like the final piece of healing slotting into place, completing a journey from devastation to wholeness. I once thought impossible. Looking back on the entire experience now, I recognize several profound lessons. First, the importance of complete healing before entering new relationships. Had I met Amanda immediately after my divorce, I wouldn't have been emotionally available to build something meaningful. The months spent rebuilding myself through therapy, support groups, and rediscovered passions were essential preparation for healthy love. Second, I learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing harmful actions, but about releasing their power over your future. I no longer carry anger toward Jessica or Richard. Their choices reflect their own struggles, not my worthiness for love and respect. This understanding freed me from the burden of resentment that might otherwise have colored my relationship with Amanda. Perhaps most importantly, I gained perspective on warning signs in relationships. Both in reflecting on my marriage and in building my relationship with Amanda, I became attuned to patterns of communication, respect, and honesty. Healthy love doesn't require perfect alignment on every issue, but it demands transparency and mutual regard even during disagreements. Amanda and I are planning our wedding for next spring. We've chosen a small ceremony in a botanical garden, surrounded by close friends and family, who supported us through challenging times. When I look at my fiancée now, I feel profound gratitude for the journey that brought us together, even its painful chapters. Sometimes the worst betrayals create openings for our greatest happiness. Have you experienced a relationship betrayal that eventually led to something better? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone who is currently in the darkest part of their journey. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember that even when it feels impossible, you can move through pain into a life more beautiful than you imagined.